This is The Sports Life.
The Washington Mystics select Lauren Betts, UCLA. The Chicago Sky select Gabriella Hawkes, UCLA. The Toronto Tempo select Kiki Rice, UCLA. The Washington Mystics select Angela Dugalich. The Connecticut Sun select Gianna Neepkins from UCLA.
And welcome into the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. And what you heard were the highlights from the WNBA draft. Heard a lot of UCLA. Think about this. The Bruins, the national champs, right? They had 5 first-round picks. And then the next pick for UCLA came in the second round. And so the first 6 picks for the Big Ten were all off of one team?
Honestly, that just sounded like the entire first round of the WNBA draft right there. I mean, there's only 15 picks per round. So the UCLA owned a third of the first round. It set a new school record for that's ever been done by any school for most picks in a first round. It was simply incredible.
I can't wait to see the encore.
It's right.
Anyway, well, as for this show, we have a good one lined up for you. We're going to take a little time as we bid farewell to this year's college basketball season to reflect back on some big moments and talk about the history of how we came up with one of the greatest sports anthems of all time.
That's right. And you talked about some of those best moments as we kind of bask still in what the NCAA tournament was. We're going to look at some of the buzzer beaters and game winners the Big Ten's had throughout history. We're also going to turn our attention to next week. The NFL draft comes to Pittsburgh, and we're going to be joined by Mike Renner of CBS to talk a little bit about the best prospects from the Big Ten and how well the conference will fare.
Sounds of the week. What do we got?
Well, let's start off still just highlighting what that was with the WNBA draft. 5 first-round draft picks for UCLA. And, of course, the next one, as you mentioned, 18th overall, Charlize Ledger-Walker, also from UCLA. You got to imagine there is just about nobody happier than head coach Corey Close of UCLA watching all of her former players get drafted. Here's what she had to say about what that senior class they're leaving behind in a legacy.
Well, it says they have exemplary work ethic. This does not just happen. You don't just fall to the top of this mountain. You scratch and claw and climb, and they really have sacrificed. I had so many WNBA coaches come to our practices and be like, this is not normal. The intentional growth, the way that they come early, stay late. And I have to give my, scout guys, managers, staff so much credit because they really have to put in so much extra time in order for them to achieve this kind of development.
Well, think back to the John Wooden era, right? That's like the kind of the gold standard. Mm-hmm. There's no way he had that many guys get drafted in the first round of the NBA draft.
I mean, it's really remarkable. It's hard to think if there's any kind of precedent.
I don't think there is.
But it also goes to show why they were so good. They nearly went completely unbeaten, only had 1 loss on the year, and that was to Texas, and a game where they felt like they just ran out of time before they ended up coming from behind to beat Texas. Of course, got their revenge on that in the Final Four, but a banner year for the Bruins in UCLA. Of course, as we know, that ended the drought for Big Ten women's basketball, first national champion since 1999, Purdue, with UCLA winning that one. Also ending a drought on the men's side, the Michigan Wolverines with this win. First national championship since 2000 with the Flintstones, Tom Izzo, and the Michigan State Spartans. Here's what head coach Dusty May of the Michigan Wolverines had to say at the celebration back home in Ann Arbor after winning it all.
First of all, thank all of you for making all of us feel like family and welcome in Ann Arbor, first of all. Second of all, I want to thank Chrislyn Manuel. She sold me a house in this area a long time ago, and because of that, we always followed Ward's career and followed Michigan closely. And I also want to thank Ward for bringing the contract down to Fort Lauderdale because I do everything with impulse. And as soon as it felt right and he laid it on the desk, I may have asked Anna for permission, and it didn't take long, and the deal was done. And I walked across the street to have a slice of pizza to celebrate. And that's when it dawned on me that I was actually the coach at Michigan. And it's been an honor for 2 years. to represent all of you and to be called coach by these guys, anytime you have a group come together and you feel like they gave you so much more than you could ever give them, it melts you, because these guys did it for each other. They did it for the staff. They did it for all of you. And they did it for all the right reasons, with class, with great effort, and support for each other. And that's all you can ask for as a coach. I said I'd be long-winded. I'm not going to talk that much, but I do want to thank my wife, Anna, and my sons. They've allowed me to chase this dream and try to be the absolute best coach I could be for these guys. My heart melts with gratitude for all of you, especially for them. They've left a legacy. They've been an example and a standard for all Michigan teams going forward. Thank you, and go Blue.
Dustin May, the head basketball coach of the Wolverines of Michigan, addressing the group, talking about his national title run. Well, it's fun to talk about that. We've talked about how it ended the drought. But when you think about it, if I had said to you, Dalton, 3 years ago, they're going to take that program, which was on the ropes, and you're going to get a new coach, and he's going to be there 2 years and bring home a national championship, only the second one in the history of your program, I think I could have got a lot of people to take that bet.
Well, I think it was actually the voice of Michigan basketball, Brian Bush. He was being interviewed, I believe, by Brett Galley of Detroit market area. And after the game where they won the national championship, Brad had asked Brian a little bit about, where the program was and where it is now. He said a couple of years ago, I just was hoping we'd make an NCAA tournament. Now we're winning it all.
It's amazing.
It is.
It is an amazing thing. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, we're going to dial in on one shining moment. But first, this time out.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Every kid deserves a chance to feel safe, to have their own bed, to be loved and cared for. That's why I love my foster parents. They make me feel like part of the family.
Raise hope and foster dreams for one of 13,000 Michigan children in foster care. Visit michigan.gov/hope for a home or call 855-MICH-KIDS. That's 855-MICH-KIDS. Sponsored by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay. My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back to more of the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler. And don't forget, Auto Owners Insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you. Well, if there was a quiz about naming the most famous sports anthem in the nation, I'm guessing that One Shining Moment would be the runaway winner. Yet this week's cover story about One Shining Moment is truly a story within a story. You see, the lead narrative is the origin of the song, while the other is how it went from a napkin in Haslet, Michigan to CBS Sports. So let's start at the beginning with the song's composer, David Barrett.
I lived in Haslet, Michigan. So I'm a Spartan fan as well, and I was living up there, in the 80s, early 80s, and I write songs every day, and I happened to write this song, One Shining Moment, after it's not even there anymore, Nightcap 2. I went to meet a friend, and he didn't show up, and a waitress who's probably still lives up there somewhere, her name is Jan, I can't think of her last name, came up after the night was through, and I was sitting there by myself at the bar, and she came up and sat down next to me, and I was watching ESPN, and I was trying to explain to her what was so amazing about, at that point, Larry Bird, who was using somebody like soap at the time in these highlights, and I was trying to explain that this guy, this period of time of his life is, he's in the zone, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. So she was dutifully unimpressed, but I remember thinking, well, I know you should write about what you know, and I know a little bit about that, and so all of a sudden, boom, there comes this idea, and I'm writing it down madly on a napkin. Went home and wrote the music to it, and that was that.
So now David Barrett has a song, One Shining Moment, and he also has a high school buddy from his days of growing up in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. His friend lives in New York City, and he worked at that time for Sports Illustrated. His name, Armin Katayan. So, Barrett gave Katayan a copy of the song for some feedback.
Well, it's funny, it was on a cassette tape. Some people may not remember those, but, I popped it in to this cassette tape. He had come to our apartment, which at the time my wife, Dee Dee, was about 484 square feet, which we actually measured at one point in time, and one bedroom on the east side of Manhattan, and he would stay with us occasionally, sleep on the fold-out couch when he was in town to do a gig or to he did some work in the advertising business, and Gray Advertising was right up the street. And so he said to me, he goes, I've written a song, I don't know what to do with it. I think it's pretty good. Would you listen to it? And, the early version of One Shining Moment had this piano prelude to it, which was called Golden Street. And I just, David's a terrific piano player, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And then, the first notes of what it is now the classic One Shining Moment came up, and then I just, listened to the words, and I thought, holy cow, this is like lightning in a bottle. And I was just kind of blown away by it because, the beauty of the song, I think, is so much. The words are evocative, but there's a simplicity to the song, and there's power in simple words oftentimes. And I called David, and I was like, holy cow, Jesus, I think you've got something here. And he goes, what do you think we can do with it? And I happened to know at the time, it was just sort of kismet. I had been talking to Bob Tassi, who was the vice president of communications at CBS Sports at the time, various projects and things that we were talking about. And I called him up because they happened to be right across the street from the Time building at the time on 6th Avenue in New York. And I just said, Bob, I think I've got something here. I'm not sure if you guys are interested in any sort of, theme songs or anything like that. And he goes, wow, that's weird because we're looking for a theme song, for various sports we had. So I took it across the street, and to continue the story for a moment, I left it with Bob, and he called me back, if memory serves, he called me back like 3 hours later at my office at SI, and he goes, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "Well, try me." And he said, "I put this song on and a cassette tape in my office. I started to play it, and within about a minute, my office was full of people listening to this song." And he goes, "This is an incredible song." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so too." He goes, "I think we're going to do something with it." So that was the beginning. It's just a confluence of events. It's weird that something that has lasted this long had such sort of humble beginnings and strange beginnings.
Now back in Michigan, when CBS Sports called David Barrett about One Shining Moment, he thought it was a gag.
Oh, I did. Isn't that funny? I thought it was some friends from the Peanut Barrel giving me a hard time, and I literally almost hung up. And fortunately, the guy said, "I hope you." His first foray was, "I hope you have a good lawyer."
Now, when CBS Sports made the deal with David Barrett to use his One Shining Moment tune, it was earmarked to play at the end of the 1987 Super Bowl. But because the broadcast ran long, it was not used, which led it to be repurposed for airing for the first time in the 1987 Final Four after the title game. So what would have happened if the song had aired during that year's Super Bowl and had not been bumped back to be broadcast in the Final Four? Again, the thoughts of Armin Katayan.
It would have been a one and done. I don't think there's any question that if it had aired in the 87 Super Bowl, that it would have been a song you heard once and probably never heard again. But now it's like, I don't know, I think it's I don't think there's another anthem in sports that even gets, approaches what One Shining Moment is. I mean, if you hear one note of that song, it's March Madness and it's the Final Four.
So there's the story of how a couple of high school buddies took a song written on a napkin to becoming possibly the greatest sports anthem of our time. But before we wrap up this cover story about the song One Shining Moment, one more story from composer and Michigan State basketball fan David Barrett.
In fact, when Michigan State won the national championship, which was wonderful, they had their championship rings. On their championship rings, they had One Shining Moment put on it, and they said, they called and asked if I would, if that'd be okay, and I said, of course, as long as I get one. And so they were kind enough to give me a Michigan State national championship ring, which is a testimony to Tom Izzo.
So now that you've heard the One Shining Moment story, has Armin Katayan ever wondered what might have happened if he had not taken that song to CBS Sports?
Yeah, I have. And it's weird. I've had I'm very proud of the career that I've put together over time. But you think about your obit. I think if somebody was smart about it, they might just go, that might be in the first paragraph or so. That by just pure friendship, and that's all really it was. It was just me trying to do something for a very good friend of mine. It turns out to be something that has really stood the test of time and has, I think, just had an enormous impact, on college sports. And that to me is really gratifying because, during the course of my career, I did 7 Final Fours. I was on the floor, and it remains to this day, I think, my favorite event to cover because of the power of it. I think we saw it, again this year, just how it really connects with people in ways that are almost hard to imagine. And I'll never forget, I'm from Michigan. Michigan State won in 2000. I was there on the floor standing next to Tom Izzo and Mateen Cleaves. And, the backstory on Mateen, was that when he was growing up in Flint and playing on the playgrounds of Flint by himself, shooting baskets, he would pretend that he was at a Final Four and, was going to listen to One Shining Moment. And then, to stand next to him with tears in Mateen's eyes and tears in Tom's eyes, that's an emotional wallop that you just don't get to experience very often in your life. So yeah, I'm I don't know. I've done a lot of things, but I'm as proud of what what that song has represented to so many people over the years. And to have a hand in it is really, it's very gratifying.
What a wonderful story about the best anthem in all of sports. And I am so grateful that there was no time to play that after Super Bowl 21. Back with more in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
That ought to do it. Totally energy efficient.
Oh, no, not again. This time, we're getting help.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the battle of energy efficiency improvements. In this corner, Mr. I can save money and do it on my own. And in this corner, Miss Let's Get It Done Right with some help. Fight!
Or you could just go to avoidenergydrama.com. From sealing your home to helpful loan options, you'll find all the tips and tools you need to stop wasting energy and stay comfortable. Avoidenergydrama.com. Brought to you by Michigan Saves.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see. Depression won't show up on an eye chart, and you can't measure it on your bathroom scale. Sorting out a mental health concern is not something to attempt on your own. You won't find a bipolar disorder by looking at a thermometer. Like many other health conditions, help for mental illness takes professional diagnosis and treatment. Anxiety won't just go away under a stick-on bandage. So the sooner you seek treatment, the better. If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. Find out what to do. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support. That's samhsa.gov/support.
And welcome back from all the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here, along with Dalton Shetler. Well, the NCAA Tournament is really exciting because you really never know what's going to happen. It's the one event every year where the little guy can beat the big guy. And like they always say, you don't have to be better than somebody all the time, just for maybe 40 minutes. Well, if we're going to revisit some great NCAA moments as it pertains to the Big Ten, why not start with a shot that wins a national championship?
I think it's a pretty good way to kick us off. And so, of course, let's head down and celebrate the 1987 championship with the Indiana Hoosiers. And the player that hit the shot that you're talking about, Keith Smart. Let's have a listen to the call with the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fisher.
At the Smart, baseline jump shot in the air. Good! 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1. The Hoosiers have won the national championship.
I hope this team will show you that when you've got some problems of your own and when things aren't going really well for you, you can tighten your belt a little bit and get the ball to Keith Smart and things will come out all right.
It was just that moment. It was my time and got the shot and it
didn't think anything of it. I caught the ball and shot it without even thinking about it. And I guess it was just that time for Keith Smart to put his name, I guess, in history. Then I didn't realize that it was such a big deal. But as I get farther and farther away from that moment, I'm starting to see that, man, this really was something that was special. You know, and every year the tournament comes on and they show the shot all over. Throughout the summer, they'll show the championship game in Indiana. So it never dies. It continues to live and live on.
Keith Smart talking about his little piece of immortality. Little fun there from Bobby Knight. And Don Fisher on that call, he's been sounding just like that, making those great calls for over 50 years.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really something. That was a great moment. Well, when we talked to Bruce Weber, we obviously talked about the Illinois-Arizona game back from 2005 and the Great Illini comeback. So how can we not have that on our list?
We have to go to that. So let's go ahead and hear some of the great shots that fueled the comeback for the Illini with the voice of Illinois, Brian Barnhart.
Illinois has roared back from 15 down to cut it to 3. Inbound, Ingram steals it. Head has it in the left wing. Out top to Williams. Darren for the tie. He got it. He got it. 80-80. Darren Williams with the biggest three of his life.
Now they have to play straight-up defense. No fouls at this point.
34 seconds to go. 80-80 Illinois and Arizona. Brown all over Shakur. Timeout Arizona. Oh, my. I can't believe what I've just seen.
That's got to be the greatest comeback in Illinois history when it's needed the most.
2:20 to go in the game for a trip to the Final Four. Here is Williams. Pops open. Shoots a three and got it.
Oh, man, that's a backbreaker by Darren Williams. Boy, he struggled all afternoon. He put the team on his back in the last 3 minutes.
5 3-pointers for Darren Williams in the second half. And it's 88-84 Illinois. Here's a steal. Luther head. Coming to the basket. Layup good.
Boy, these guys got heart in reserve, Brian.
What a blitz by Illinois.
They have no quit in sight.
All right, here we go. 11.8 to go. 90-89 Illinois. The inbound for Arizona. They get it to Shakur. Guarded by D. Brown. Bounce pass. On the wing, Adams. Double team. 4. Illinois up 1. Arizona. Adams. Jumper. No good. Illinois is going to the Final Four. Illinois is going to the Final Four. 90-89. Look at those Illini jumping around. We're headed for St. Louis. We'll see you by the arch.
Well, two big surprises in that whole sequence. By the way, great call there, as always, by Brian Barnhart. That other voice you heard was Stephen Bardo.
Mm-hmm.
And number one, how did Illinois get down so big? That was the first shock. And then against a really good Arizona team and a great coach in Lute Olson, for them to come back like that and get to St. Louis in the Final Four was unbelievable. But like they say, that's why you play the game, right?
Absolutely. But, you mentioned a couple of things that stood out to you. Something that stood out to me, that crowd must have been standing on top of the shoulders of Brian Barnhart and Stephen Bardo. And you could feel like you were in the gym during that clip.
Well, they had a pretty nice run there because they were in a Chicago suburb. That wasn't too bad. And if you're an Illini fan and you're going to St. Louis for the Final Four, that's not too bad either. So they got to the final game, didn't quite work out there against North Carolina, but what a run they had.
Absolutely. And by the way, also in that Final Four that year was Michigan State in 2005, and that segues us over to Michigan State and a great moment they had a few years after that. 2010, Michigan State and Maryland would meet in the round of 32, and this is one of the better endings to a basketball game you're going to find in the NCAA Tournament history, not just because it ends with a buzzer beater, but the shot before it. Here's the final call and the final sequence between Michigan State and Maryland in 2010.
The ball comes in to Lucius. Here we go. 25 to go on the shot clock. Michigan State down by 1. With the ball roll. Roll, bounce pass to Green on the side. Here's the shot. He got it! He got it! Michigan State by a point. We've got 18 seconds to go. And now Maryland will get the final shot of the game. Vasquez has it. He'll want to shoot it. He's spinning. Here comes the shot. Bank shot is good. Maryland's back up by 1. We got 6 seconds to go. Green is on the run for Michigan State. Now to Lucius for three and the win. He got it! He got it! He got it! At the buzzer! Unbelievable! At the buzzer! Oh my goodness!
Well, that was something, and I can tell you what was going through my mind when all that was going on. Number one, I thought the Draymond Green shot was the winner.
Right.
I thought Maryland would shoot but miss, and I thought they would shoot like with 2 seconds left, not 6 or whatever. Okay, so I was wrong on the Green thing. Maryland scored, but the fun thing, and we talked about this before, as Draymond Green is tearing down the floor, Tom Izzo is getting up to call a timeout and didn't, which is the best timeout he never didn't call, right?
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
that's proper English. But it was just amazing. And the part I didn't see at the moment, when Green threw the ball to Corey Lucius at the top, what I didn't see was one of the post players, Delvon Rowe. He actually ducked so the pass could get from Green to Lucius for the shot. What happens if he decides to catch it? But he didn't. He was smart enough. He ducked, and the rest is history. But that, think about it. All that happens within a handful of seconds.
It's crazy to think about, and the visual that's in my head isn't so much if Delvon goes to catch it, but if that ball just baseball passes, hits him in the side of the head. I mean, that thing was on a beeline right next to his head, and he just ducked right out the end of the way. And that's kind of one of the signatures of Delvon Rowe and his legacy.
Yeah, and that Lucius shot, sometimes you see a shot and you know it's good when it leaves the guy's hand. There was no doubt that thing was good.
What an awesome March Madness moment. That'll move us forward to Ohio State in 2013. They survive late against Iowa State with an Aaron Kraft game winner. Here's how it sounded with the voice of the Ohio State Buckeyes, Paul Keels.
So here we go. Aaron Kraft, high on the right, 5 seconds left. Kraft, top of the key. Kraft still dribbling, 3 seconds left. Kraft shoots it high on the right for 3. Got it! Aaron Kraft with a tenth of seconds left. He knocks it down from right of the key, 78-75. Ohio State, as Aaron Kraft, in the face of the defense, sticks a major league basket down.
That's a big-time play by a big-time player, Aaron Kraft.
Aaron Kraft was one of those guys, you would like him to be on your team. If he wasn't, you didn't like him at all. But it's interesting, he wasn't a 25-point-a-game guy. He just was a guy that could win the game with a shot like Paul called there or a great defensive play. In his time at Ohio State, he just was fabulous.
Mm-hmm. Just played his tail off consistently. Well, let's go to the rivals for the Ohio State Buckeyes and move to 2018, where the Michigan Wolverines had a game-winning iconic moment thanks to Jordan Poole, who knocks off Houston with this game winner called on the TV side by Brad Nessler.
So the pass is going to come from Livers. He rifles it right in front of us to Abdul Rahman at midcourt. Extra pass. And it goes for the win! The three-pointer by Jordan Poole! A freshman has won it for the Wolverines.
Well, that was a great moment. And, it's pretty interesting. In the time that John Beeline was the head coach at Michigan, I do think at times his efforts and success there was overlooked. It was like they're getting to Final Fours, they're winning Big Ten titles. And who would have thought they'd win a Big Ten tournament title after a plane crash, playing games in like practice uniforms? And I just thought that shot by Poole sort of, it's a great moment. But I just felt like he did such a wonderful job there that he maybe should have gotten more credit than he did.
Oh, I think that's very fair to say. I mean, to your point, took Michigan to 2 national championship games, and one of them was that year, thanks to Jordan Poole earlier on in the tournament, hitting that shot. Well, let's talk about another team in a Final Four appearance. 2019, Michigan State knocks off number 1 seed Duke, led by Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish. The whole Blue Devils squad falls to a former walk-on, Kenny Goins, in this shot.
40 seconds left in this basketball game. 20 on the shot clock. With the ball, Tillman high post. Now to Kenny Goins. Here's a three. He got it! He got it!
Wow!
It's going to be frantic on this play. Tillman looking, and he gets it to Cash. He's all by himself. It could be a breakaway, but he doesn't shoot. Time runs out! Time runs out! Michigan State has just won the region. Michigan State 68, Duke 67. Folks, we are going to the Final Four.
And what a game that was. Zion, the greatest player in college basketball at the time, gets smoked by a walk-on. And at the end of that game, for those that were in the arena that could see it, when the inbound pass came to Cassius, he goes left. They couldn't catch him to foul him. And it looked like the Keystone Cops. And it was one of the great games of all time. And I really thought that should have been a Final Four game, not an Elite Eight game. But I don't get to select the seeds, so there you go. But it was fun to be there, and it's fun to relive some of those fabulous moments in Big Ten basketball when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Back with more in a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to MichiganCommunityAction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. We'll team in here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, in the wide world of college football, the Big Ten has done pretty good in the playoff era. 2023, 24, 25, all champions from the Big Ten, Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana in that order. And in the 12 years they've done this playoff system in some fashion, the Big Ten has won 4 of them. And so that would tell you, Dalton, that there's some good players in the Big Ten. And with the NFL draft coming up April 23rd to the 25th in Pittsburgh, obviously we're thinking maybe some guys in the Big Ten will be predominant in the wide world of who gets drafted where. And to help us sort this out is a CBS Sports NFL draft analyst, Mike Renner. And Mike, thanks for joining us. And is our assessment good here? If the teams are good, the Big Ten might make a good showing in this draft?
Yeah, when you win the Natty, when you have a team like Ohio State in there, I think you'll see a lot of Big Ten prospects come off the board. But yeah, I think Ohio State's going to do some of the heavy lifting. They might set some records in terms of the top of this draft, how many guys they end up having top 10 picks here.
Well, I was going to say, Mike, if you take a look at your mock draft that is out there on CBS, by my count, in the top 18 picks, you had 10 Big Ten players selected in the top 18. A lot of those were Buckeyes, but, I mean, that is an overwhelming number. Have you seen something like that?
No, I'm trying to think of back when the SEC was, heyday 2020, 2021, when, Bama and Georgia were flirting with that. I don't know if they were necessarily in that kind of dominance, though, but that's just the way the Big Ten's gone, right? You have so many, the top of the Big Ten there's a lot of elite teams now in that conference.
Well, when you look at Indiana, Mike, obviously number one, I still can't get used to saying Indiana's national football champion. But in the end of it, it's a great team, but how many great players you think might go in this draft?
I have 3 in my top 32. Now, I don't think necessarily 3 go off the board in the top 32, but I know 2 will. Fernando Mendoza is obviously going to go number 1, and I know his wideout, Omar Cooper Jr., will be drafted somewhere amongst the top 32. After him, though, D'Angelo Pons, the corner, is the other one in my top 32. I don't think he goes there because he will be the smallest corner ever drafted in the first round if he does, but I think he comes off the board in the second round because I don't know if there's too many better corners in college football. The guy plays the game the right way. He's been awesome ever since he stepped foot on Indiana's campus a couple of years ago, came over with Signetti. So he'll be there. And then the other wide receiver, Elijah Surratt, I expect to come off the board somewhere on day 2. So those 4, I mean, they did a lot of the heavy lifting for Indiana last year, and I think their draft status will bear that out.
Well, Mike, since we're looking in at Indiana for the moment, I mean, the top pick in the draft is probably going to be a Hoosier. All signs point to Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman-winning quarterback, the national champion, being the number 1 overall pick. I'm curious, how do you do the evaluation of Fernando Mendoza? Because we saw some of his early career at Cal, and of course the system wasn't nearly as supportive as what it ended up being in Bloomington, Indiana. But what makes Fernando a top pick?
I think the biggest thing that separates him compared to number 1 picks historically is just how intelligent he is. The football IQ, the dedication to the game. When you hear him talk about X's and O's, when you hear him talk about scheme or just what it takes to be a quarterback, it sounds like the elite guys at the next level. So he has the makeup of a franchise quarterback that a lot of the reasons you worry about someone not translating from college to the NFL, you don't worry about that with Mendoza. And then, so not only the intangibles, but then on the field, his play under pressure, his play in crunch time situations. I mean, the guy ticked every box in that regard. He was as good as I've seen since probably Joe Burrow in those regards this past season. And that's, how you get a Cinderella-like story like Indiana winning a national title.
It's interesting, Mike, following up on what you and Dalton just talked about. In the wide world of the draft and all the things we go through, we're inundated with numbers, right? Like Dalton has a 3.240. That'd be good, wouldn't it? And so you go through all these numbers, but going back to what you guys just talked about, how much influence do the NFL teams put into what you just talked about? The intangibles, and being able to win a game, being a football player, which in some ways is the eye test that supersedes all these goofy numbers.
It depends team to team, right? Some teams, they care about it a lot. They will not bring guys in their building if they don't think that they are on par, going to fit in with their culture, that they're going to bring it every single day. Those sorts of guys, they just won't even. They'll be off their draft board entirely. Other teams, though, they're like, hey, either we have a culture. Team. I think of a team like the Chiefs, who are like, hey, we have a culture here. We have leaders at the top who will get guys to fall in line. We'll get guys to work their butts off. We can bring in some guys who are extremely talented, but maybe not necessarily all ball sorts of players, and they get them to fall in line. Their track record's been good at that. And then there's others that really just don't have a culture themselves, don't really care about culture themselves, and then bring in guys who don't really fit with that. And sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But it really is such a team-specific thing that I think it does matter. I think that every guy has to get better once they get to the NFL. And so you need hard work in some way, shape, or form. But sometimes, money motivates guys too. So there's always, it's always an interesting conversation. And that's why each prospect is unique.
Well, I'm glad we've talked a lot about Indiana because it's such a great story and it's so well deserved. But I want to circle back now to the minor league team or the NFL factory, Ohio State, that you talked about a little bit. I think you have in your mock draft 4 Buckeyes in the top 10 picks of this year's draft. 3 of them come from the defensive side of the ball. Edge rusher Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles at linebacker, the best safety in the country, and Caleb Downs. Also a wideout, which seems to be appropriate coming from Ohio State, being Carnell Tate. What makes these 4 really different and stick out among some of the peers?
I think with the linebackers, it's obvious they are freak athletes. I mean, truly special dudes in their own right. Sonny Styles is one of the best just speed range linebackers you'll ever see, whereas Reese is one of the strongest and most explosive off-ball linebackers, and that's why everyone wants to move him to edge because of that. So they are just special athletically. And then the other 2, I wouldn't put them as special athletes. They're more just watch the tape and watch how they play, and it's just obvious that those guys got it. I mean, Carnell Tate is just so smooth at his size. He looks like an NBA player the way he just can glide down the field and haul in passes outside his frame. And then Caleb Downs, we knew this since day one freshman year when he was at Alabama. I mean, this guy is a special true freshman season at safety. He could have gone to the NFL then and probably been a first-round pick. So just nothing new with him.
Visiting with Mike Renner, CBS Sports NFL draft analyst. And Mike, is there a Big Ten guy out there on any of these teams that might show up nicely on the draft day that we're not talking about?
I have been saying that I think Vega Ioane, the Penn State guard, could go higher than people expect because, to me, he might have the cleanest tape in this entire offensive line class. And I think, traditionally, historically, tackle has been favored over guard in the NFL. But I think in the modern NFL, you see guard and interior offensive line contracts creeping up into the range of offensive tackles. The gap is getting closer between those 2 positions because everyone wants firm pockets for their quarterbacks. You can help tackles. You can chip to help a tackle. There's no chipping to help a guard. You almost have to slide to help a guard. And so the guys that you don't have to help on the interior, a lot of smarter or sharper teams are treating them or paying them and valuing them like tackles. So it wouldn't surprise me if, given all that, he goes somewhere in the top 10 to 12 picks.
One of the schools that we haven't talked about yet, but I think will be represented maybe by multiple picks in the first round, Oregon. They seem to have a couple of Ducks that might be first-round players, be Thursday picks. What do you make of them?
Yeah, I would not be surprised, and I would probably bet right now that they have 2 first-rounders in both Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end, and Dylan Thieneman, the safety. And it's crazy. They had numerous guys who I think could have been first rounders come back to school. Defense tackle Mari Washington. Obviously, then another defense tackle in Bear Alexander, and then obviously Dante Moore, the quarterback. So they are building, there's no secret why they've been so highly ranked heading into the playoffs each of the last 2 seasons. It's like they have talented football teams. So the way they've turned that program around, I mean, they're probably the closest thing to Ohio State right now from a pure talent churning perspective in that conference.
I wanted to ask you too, Mike, if we stay out there on the West Coast for Big Ten schools, there's another talented wide receiver that's probably going to hear his name called on the first day on Thursday, Mekhi Lemon from USC, somebody that much of the Big Ten started to really be able to appreciate throughout the course of last season. What makes him so special and unique?
It's just the way he plays the position. I mean, he's not necessarily the biggest guy. He's like obviously not the biggest guy, right? He's pretty small presentingly, and that's why he's probably going to be a slot at the NFL level. But he never backs down. He's tough as nails. He blocks his butt off. Like he does all the little things you want at the position, and then just doesn't drop passes, contested catches left and right. There's not a lot to dislike about his game. I came away, writing all the pros and cons for all these receivers, and his cons list was just the shortest of anyone. There's not a lot of cons when you watch his tape. The con is just, can a guy who's an okay athlete with a small frame, can he succeed at the NFL level? When he's got the rest, I'm going to go to bat and say, yes, he can succeed.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to shift gears on you a second. You ready? It's fun to talk to you about your opinion of all these college kids going into the NFL draft, but your process, how do you come up with your list? What is your regiment to come up with the Mike Renner list of draft picks?
It's extensive. I've actually started writing a little bit of a book just for myself, for my own, about how to scout each position, because I think each position is different. What you look for, depending on what the guy's role is, could be completely different. But the building blocks I look for are body control, balance, and explosiveness. I think if you got those three things, if you can really move easily, if you can, stay on balance and be able to change directions and be, able to react to unexpected things, because that's really all football is always unexpected things. If you can do that, and then you're an explosive athlete, you can be a darn good football player regardless of position. So those are the things I kind of keep coming back to. But depending on what other position it is, on an obviously quarterback, that's not even, it's its own thing. It doesn't even feel like a football thing to scout. It's like a completely other psychological and data-driven thing. But it's what makes it fun, is that there's so many different skill sets that come to one football team. It's why I love doing what I do.
Mike, how many different players do you look at every year?
Oh, gosh. I mean, it's throughout the season. So I do scouting for the Shrine Bowl too, and we get through a bunch of guys. I mean, it probably ends up being 400 or so that I get eyes on. It doesn't mean I watch a ton of some of the back end guys. A lot of times, when you see a guy, he either doesn't have it, and so you can move on quickly. But yeah, somewhere in that range.
Well, Mike, I appreciate it. It'll be fun to see what happens at the end of April.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me. You guys take it easy.
Some of the thoughts of Mike Renner, CBS Sports NFL draft analyst. And the draft is coming up for the National Football League in Pittsburgh, April 23rd through the 25th. Up next, some great moments in Big Ten basketball as we salute the end of another wonderful season, but first a break.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to MichiganCommunityAction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Anybody ready for a burger?
I'm State Fire Marshal Rich Miller, reminding everyone to think safety first when it comes to outdoor grilling, whether it's charcoal or gas. Never overload your grill with food. Excess fat and grease will create large flames. Grill outdoors and never inside or in a garage. Never leave a grill unattended and always keep a fire extinguisher nearby. For more tips on safe grilling, visit the Bureau of Fire Services website at michigan.gov/BFS.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit InsureKidsNow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
And welcome back to more of the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler. Fun show. It's always fun to go back and relive some magic moments and reflect on some things, especially when it comes to college basketball. And Mike Renner, what a fun chat about the upcoming NFL draft. So with that, we have now worked our way to the parting shots.
And by the way, if you missed anything from this show, make sure you give us a follow at Sports Life Now on Twitter or X. That's again at Sports Life Now. You can find everything there. For my parting shot, I really wanted to kind of tip the cap to the entire Big Ten Conference because what a banner year it has been in sports for the Big Ten Conference. 8 national champions to date from the Big Ten in a variety of sports. One school won a couple of national championships this year. That'd be UCLA. Of course, they just won it all in women's basketball. They also won it all in men's water polo, so a big salute to the Bruins. Northwestern won it all in field hockey this year. The Washington Huskies, national champs in men's soccer. Indiana, we know it's all about football and the Kurt Signetti story. Incredible. Penn State, national title in men's wrestling for 2026. Women's hockey goes to Wisconsin. Big win for the Badgers. And, of course, the drought ended in men's basketball as the Michigan Wolverines, national champs. So 8 national titles to date from the Big Ten for this year.
Which is actually pretty amazing.
It's incredible.
It really is. And so, speaking of guys who have been a national champion, how about Magic Johnson from Michigan State? Earvin Magic Johnson, who went from one of the greatest players in the history of basketball in general to become a very successful owner in this modern sports era. He also has been active in focusing on diversity in underserved urban communities. And he's also been really active in awareness for HIV and AIDS in terms of education and prevention. Well, because of this whole body of work outside of basketball, this year, the United States Basketball Writers Associations have awarded him the 2026 Dean Smith Award. And that is a big deal, and congratulations to Magic. So with that, that's a wrap for this week's show. And as always, we should note, you can find us wherever you find your podcasts like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler. Our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Teeman, and thanks for your time.